Get faster.
Got it. Hello.
This lane, I think.
I would like to challenge Matt Bozak.
Scotty Bull.
Jason Belmasi.
Well, good Tuesday evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bowling with the Fef, a platform for you to share your unique bowling story live on our YouTube channel the day after Christmas if you're in America, Boxing Day if you're in Canada. Hope you've had a great holiday season so far. I know I have, and can't wait to get into another great show for you all. If you are watching live, remember, you've got that live chat window. Feel free to chime in, ask us questions, give us comments. Derek from Flush in the Pocket podcast already has. He says, what's up? Hope you're doing well, Derek, and had a happy holiday season. If you are watching on replay, that's cool too. You have the opportunity to leave comments. Please do. We love to hear from everybody out there watching. Let us know how we did. If you have any follow-up questions, we'll get them answered for you just as soon as we can. It's an exciting time around here because we are about a week and a half away from one of the biggest amateur tournaments in this area, the Chippewa Valley of Wisconsin. It's the Chippewa Valley Match Games coming to Wagner's Lanes in Eau Claire, January 6th and 7th. And you've got basically some of the top adult bowlers in the Midwest gathering at Wagner's, a two-day event. You've got two qualifying shifts on Saturday. The top finishers return for match play on Sunday. And then at approximately 2:30, we will have a stepladder finals, which will be live streamed right here on the channel. So if you can make it out to Wagner's, please do. If you can't, feel free to tune in and check out all the action. They are still taking registration. There's a video on the channel, by the way, if you need some contact info or some help figuring out how to register. And if you can't find that, you can always email me, bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com, and we'll get you in touch with the right folks. But again, the Chippewa Valley Match Games, January 7th is our live stream at about 2:30 in the afternoon. Bowling with the Fef, as you may already know, brought to you by Chip Magnet Salsa, who furnished this wonderful jersey for a bunch of us on the bowling team, the Chip Magnet team, of course. Chip Magnet is made right around here. Eau Claire, Wisconsin, has the salsa is in stores, in grocery stores, all over America and in Canada, more than 38 states. You go to chipmagnetsalsa.com to order online. And if you do, and it's your first time ordering from Chip Magnet Salsa, check out this promo code. Type that in at checkout, BWTF2023. You get 20% off your purchase of $30 or more. Limit one order per email address. If it wasn't under your tree, do yourself a favor. Give them a try. You will not regret it. It is certainly a fantastic product that has a home in my refrigerator. Always. Chip Magnet, raise your snack standards. Well, our guest tonight has a couple more weeks before he competes with his UW-Whitewater teammates again, but he will certainly be on the lanes between now and then. Just after the calendar turns to 2024, Robert Vater will be competing in the Team USA Trials in Las Vegas. Vater is from Iola, Wisconsin, center of the state. That's where he's joining us from now. And he is live on Bowling with the Fef in an episode that we are calling Slay the Gram. And we'll get into that in just a couple minutes. But first of all, Robert, welcome to the show.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Glad to see you. Always a pleasure seeing you bowl, and glad to have an opportunity to hear about your story here tonight. Let's start out with the team trials. Is this the first time you're going to be going out there?
Yes, this is the first time.
Okay, cool. So tell me about kind of the decision behind that, because it's in Vegas. There's a lot of resources that go into that. There's time. Tell me about your decision and what kind of turned the tide and made you decide that you wanted to give it a shot.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I was actually signed up to bowl, and then I eventually decided to withdraw for, I guess, other reasons. Maybe we'll get into that later, but okay. I don't know. This is just the event I've wanted to bowl for a while now, and the opportunity came again, and I just feel like this year I'm ready. A couple years ago, I wasn't really feeling great about my game, so I kind of, decided I didn't want to bowl last second, but here I am, and I think this year I could, have some success.
Yeah. No, that's an awesome opportunity, and glad to see you representing the state of Wisconsin. I'm sure there aren't many from Wisconsin going, but it's cool to have some representation there from our state, and that's awesome to hear that you're making that trip. So let's get into the title of the show. I called it Slay the Gram, and that's because you have a huge presence on Instagram. The page is called 1x a day. You can see it right there. And if you go to Instagram, it's just instagram.com/1x a day. Why don't you tell us the story behind it? How did it all get started for you? And what's it been like building up this following?
I don't really remember what prompted me to start the Instagram. It might have been, an idea I came up with, or my mom or something. But I started it during my freshman year of high school, and I just went from there, I guess, posting a video every day. I had a couple breaks in there, like during COVID. I had a lack of videos and just didn't really post. But I've been going strong, so.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, you can see right there, 9,500 followers. You've got more than 1,600 strikes on there. It's a cool concept. And I guess when you started it, did you think it would take off like this?
I never really had any expectations, or I never really saw getting this many followers, or I never put, how many days. I didn't have an idea in my head, like how long I would go. And I've thought about, how long really am I going to go? But that's just something I'll have to find out, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's been awesome to see so far. I love seeing the different strikes coming up. It's usually you, not always you, but it's kind of a surprise each time, which is kind of neat for folks like me. Now, I've got to ask, because there's another page out there called One Bad Shot a Day. Is that yours too, or is that somebody else?
That's owned by my friend Jacob Madison.
Okay.
And so I think he came up on 365 days of posting, just like this week. But there have been numerous accounts out there that have been like inspired by 1x a day. So there was I saw one spare a day, and then there's some other stuff. Or my friend Kyle, he just started posting on TikTok a strike every day until he gets a girlfriend. So a lot of fun stuff out there on Instagram.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jacob, if you're out there and you need some more bad shots, you know where to find me. I can definitely get those going for you. Connor Brown says, "Hey, Fef, parents surprised him and he's going to the PBA Delaware Classic. That's awesome. You'll have a great time there, I'm sure." And Out of the Cut Bowling says, "Oh my God, Robert Vater is my favorite."
Braden's my favorite too.
He's a hell of a player. I had the pleasure of crossing with him at the sweeper that you ran before the border battle. And wow, what an incredible bowler. Glad to have that opportunity to bowl with him a little bit. We're going to discuss, of course, your run as a competitor in the sport, and how you made your way to UW-Whitewater and all the success you've had. But recently, you were helping out with Indiana University's program. What was that all about, and how was it for you?
It was a good time. So last week I spent the week in Las Vegas coaching Indiana University. And so Zach Singer, who you had on a few episodes ago, he coaches Indiana. And I've known Zach for maybe like 4 or 5 years now, but just by him running WYBT, and when I first met him, he was coaching a tournament I was bowling, like I was on his team. But he's really become like a mentor of mine, I guess. And so the purpose of that was, go out there, have some fun, and, learn some stuff alongside of him, I guess.
Yeah. What did you take away from that? I imagine that's the first time you go halfway across the country to coach a college team, right?
Yeah, it was definitely a new experience or something I wouldn't really have imagined myself doing if you asked me like 6 months ago or something. But it was very different than bowling at Whitewater because one, I'm not throwing the ball, and the skill level of the bowlers is a little different. So,
Yeah.
but we made the most of it, and it was a good time.
Is that something you see yourself doing either more in the near future or someday, being a coach either on the collegiate level or just for everyday folks at a center?
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm interested in. I guess I have like a lot of doors that are open, so I don't necessarily like know what I'm gonna do. But a couple years ago, I coached the USA Bowling U15 like regional, like JBST sent a team, and I coached some of the kids. And then I have my own stuff like Henry. I work with him a lot. Like today, we were at the lanes practicing, and we spent a lot of time like talking about stuff that he's working on, and how to do this and that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, and great to have that experience. Another time that is going to be valuable for you, I'm sure, both as a coach and a competitor. So at the Med City holiday weekend in Rochester, which is where I was live streaming about a week and a half ago, Dawson Peterson announced that he is joining the team there at Whitewater. Dawson. So tell me about what he's like and what you think he brings to the program.
Dawson, for a while, we've known that he was, maybe coming to Whitewater, or we were one of his top choices. So it's been exciting, since we, heard that. And so over the last year, I've gotten to know him a lot more because he's been bowling JBSTs and the occasional WYBT. And so it was really nice to see him, finally make it official. But Dawson's a pretty good kid, and he throws the ball sick. He's one of the better recruits we've had recently. So it's exciting to see, where he can go, because I think, just being in the team environment, we can, make him better and he can make us better.
Sure. Yeah. No, it was cool to catch up with him a little bit at that live stream, and he's definitely looking forward to it. And yeah, it's going to be cool to see. Sam says, "Oh boy, gosh, what is that? A cheese and, and an ambulance?" I don't know. I think she's just hyping up Wisconsin bowling.
It might be a fire truck.
Okay.
I screen quite clearly, but a couple years ago when Braden made match play at Junior Gold, we all wore fire hats from Firehouse Subs, and so then we did the same thing this last year when Trey and Braden made it. So
cool.
I guess that's a story.
There you go. And HJMW says, first saw Robert bowl at Coral Lanes in Wausau a few years back, and he said he knew you had talent. You remember bowling at Coral?
I've bowled there a couple times.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Oh, and Sam says fire truck, cheese, and exclamation point. So yeah, I'm guessing you got that one from her. So let's get into your story. Like I said, you're from Iola. I'm assuming you grew up there. Tell us about kind of how you got into bowling first off.
I got into bowling by watching Dude Perfect's trick shot video that they did with Jason Belmonte in 2014. And so I didn't really catch on to the video right away. It might have been like 2015 or something, because it was around 2015, 2016 that I started, to ask my mom if I could go bowling and such. And then I eventually got into middle school bowling and high school bowling. And somewhere in there, I had gotten my license when I was a sophomore, and so I was bowling a lot more at that point. But prior to that, my parents had to take me to go bowling, And so we live out in the country. We have a barn. And so one day I thought it was a good idea. Bowling alley near us gave us some pins. And so I took some pins and a ball out to the barn. And then so that was barn bowling. And then so I'd barn bowl every day. And that's just the beginning, I guess.
Yeah. Which center did you start out at? What was your home center then?
Nowadays I bowl like primarily like all the time at Silver Lake Lanes. When I first got into bowling, it was a little bit of Silver Lake Lanes and a little bit of Whitetail Lanes in Amherst. And Whitetail was the place that gave me the bowling pins. So
okay, all right,
they really started the fire, I guess.
Sure. And like you said, you live out in the country. It's a drive to either place. So I'm guessing you've got to kind of show that commitment to get your folks to get you out there. Was that an easy thing to convince them of?
I guess I don't really remember how it happened, but I would always look forward to Saturdays because I had youth league. So that was my guaranteed day. I knew I was going to go bowling. And then I try to convince them to take me other days of the week. And it was always difficult, even once I had my license, to bowl during like the cross country season. But then, at some point, when I did have my license, I would go, late at night after the leagues were done and I'd practice. But it worked out fine, I guess. I got to the lanes enough times.
Yeah. You mentioned cross country. You're a runner. Do those seasons intersect at all? And did that kind of create any kind of a conflict or a point where you had to say to yourself, okay, it's going to be one or the other because I can't really do both?
Cross country is in the fall, and then bowling for me has been, it's always year round. And so it was definitely difficult. And early on, like my freshman and sophomore year, when I didn't have my license during the cross country season, like my practice hours for bowling was, very slim. But then my sophomore year, I got my license, and then junior year was when I really made a commitment to bowling, and it was just like a sacrifice that I made that, I had to go to cross country practice. Then I'd come home and they had leagues that I had to wait for to be done. And I knew, it was going to be a late night, but I had to go and practice. And so that was from a practice standpoint. And then as far as competition, it was nice because cross country was during the week. We would run races. And then there were, a couple occasional Saturday meets. And I remember winning one of my first big tournaments. I had to skip a cross country race. And I'm very glad I, made that decision, I guess, at the time. But
yeah. Those who have seen you bowl know that you are a two-hander. Were you always a two-hander?
Yeah, I've always been two-handed because just going back to the Dude Perfect video, just seeing Jason Belmonte, it was the part about throwing it with two hands that really got me interested in bowling, I think. And it's during middle school, I had really slow ball speed, and so I struggled with my 10 pins. So I threw one-handed at my 10 pins for a little bit, but that's about it.
Okay. And did you have coaching out there? Did you have a coach in junior league, or do you have parents that bowl?
During middle school and high school bowling, I had a few coaches, and my middle school coach got me going on some of the basics and stuff. But as far as physical game wise, starting up, it was just from watching YouTube videos. I'd come home from school and I'd watch, a couple hours of, Belmo bowling on YouTube or something. And then it wasn't until my junior year where I really got quality coaching from people who were out there developed in the bowling world.
Sure. Yeah. Braden says that he bowled against you in barn bowling match play and that you shot a perfect game against him.
Yes. we would have like tournaments, and so there I'd bowl against like my parents, or like Braden came over one time, and we would like bowl a couple matches, and then I happened to bowl like the only like tournament perfect game against like Braden.
Yeah, and you're going to have to kind of set the scene for us, because I'm sure barn bowling, if it exists in other places, it has got to be set up a little differently. Are we talking like bowling on dirt or like on wood?
Yeah, so you can find a bunch of videos on YouTube if you just search like barn bowling, because I made a bunch of videos, but it's on the barn like floor. So there's like wood. We have like wood panels, and they're like the lanes going this way, but the boards are like going this way. So it's difficult, but the lane's like 18 feet long, and then we don't have pin setters in, so it's kind of a pain to set up all 10 pins. So we would bowl with 3 pins, which, the combination of spares that you can leave isn't the most exciting, but it worked for us.
Yeah. And you said real pins. You're using real bowling balls?
Correct.
Okay.
When I first got into bowling and like barn bowling, we would go to Goodwill and St. Vincent's like thrift stores, and there were tons of bowling balls that I'd buy for like $5 or something.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Whoops. Sam says, talk about the new lanes you got for the barn. So cool. So I'm guessing there was an upgrade somewhere along the line.
We haven't really like installed the lanes or like thrown balls on them, and I don't necessarily like know what the plan is. But when we were at Teen Masters this summer, it was at Thunder Bowl in Michigan, and they just recently got new lanes in their arena, and so they had their old lanes like sitting outside in the garbage, and so between like Braden Carter's family and like mine and like the Winters, we all like thought it was a good idea to get a U-Haul, and so Mr. Malice drove a U-Haul full of bowling lane pieces all the way back home, and so they're sitting in our barn right now, and we're waiting to decide what to do with them.
Okay. Synthetic or wood?
Synthetic.
Okay. Wow. All right. So barn bowling, yeah, there is an upgrade coming. And HJMW said Badger games. I'm guessing Badger State games at Coral
Yeah,
Lanes?
I did bowl that when I was in 8th grade and 9th grade.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So you're doing it more and more. You're getting into it. Did you have an opportunity to bowl for your high school?
Yes. So we had a team, and we still have a team that Henry bowls on, my brother, and so I didn't enjoy it like the most, because somebody asked me this, and I told him nobody cared as much as me, and I guess that's the story. It wasn't really enjoyable because my teammates, they just showed up and they just threw the ball. Okay. There was no practice. I practiced more than the whole team combined. But, but then they said, well, isn't that the same like everywhere you go? Which I guess is like true in a sense. But, and then I would miss JBSTs and such. But yeah, so I bowled in high school, and so we made it to state the first 2 years, and then we got second at state my sophomore year, and then we had the same team my junior year, and we didn't make it back to state my junior year, senior year. Okay. So I don't know what happened there, but
okay. Earlier on, you sent me this picture. Where's this from?
That is from state in 2020 when I won the singles championship.
Okay. And what do you remember from that day? I mean, winning singles is a big deal.
Yeah. I don't know. There was just like a lot of anticipation because I was the number 1 seed. So I was, I had to wait for everybody to bowl before me. And I didn't even bowl that great of a game compared to like the rest of the tournament, I guess. But part of me would say, like, I guess I just like had a very like overwhelming like sense of confidence. Like there was a way I was going to do that. I led by like 150 pins in only like 6 games of qualifying, and I don't know, I came away with the win. So that was kind of my first like win. And then so like when I had won tournaments before that, and when I reflect on it, like high school state, it's not like necessarily like that big of a deal. Like I've won plenty more stuff that is way more impressive, but that was kind of like the stepping stone where I was like, this could be like this could be cool. I could win more stuff.
Sure. And while you're there as a sophomore, was somebody who you would end up having a pretty, decent relationship with in the world of bowling. And that's Sean Wachner, who used to be the coach at UW-Whitewater. When I reached out to Sean, he mentioned that. He said that he first met you at the high school state tournament when you were a sophomore. He said the year that you won singles. He said that watching you compete in qualifying, he said he knew you were different. He said that he knew you would be someone that he wanted in the program. So he said he continued to build that relationship with you for a couple of years. He said he wanted you to continue to grow as a competitor and as a person. What was it like getting to know Sean? Because he had quite a bit of success at that point.
So that weekend, I didn't even talk to him at all. I talked to a couple coaches who like came and talked to me, but I was just maybe you could say it was like my ego or something, but I was like, I'm gonna let him like come and talk to me, I guess. But after the weekend was over, he sent me a very long text, and that basically, you just summed up, like it encapsulated like that same idea. And so then, it started with me emailing him over the summer and like during COVID, and then over time, we met in person a bunch, and I went on a couple visits, and I have him on Snapchat. We have a long Snapchat streak, and we text and, keep up with each other, I guess, all the time. So,
yeah. I've had him on this show a couple times. I've messaged back and forth. I've never met him in person. If you had to kind of describe to us what he's like, I mean, maybe the difference between what he's like in casual situations versus what he's like in the heat of battle on the lanes.
I think you could say he's pretty good at like flipping the switch between those two things, where I can talk to him and he'll, make a bunch of jokes or joke with me over Snapchat, but I never really, I didn't bowl under him at Whitewater, so I don't necessarily know how it was, but watching, Kale's, YouTube videos and hearing stuff, like he was, he knew what he was doing. He was pretty serious when he needed to be. And so,
yeah,
he's a great guy.
So at some point he was, you made that decision. You were going to go to Whitewater. He got you. What was the thing that, kind of turned the tide for you and told you that, your next chapter in bowling should be as a Warhawk?
It was a lot of things, I guess. Just because we were just talking about Wachner, I just start by saying he did the best job at recruiting. Like he made me feel wanted more than any other school, and so that was a good start. And then it's just like an all around like Whitewater was a good idea for me. From just like the bowling program being, as good as it is, being relatively like close to home. And then I knew, and so it was also difficult for me too, because right when I was about to make my decision to, I was ready. I'm going to Whitewater. Sean announced that he wasn't going to be coaching anymore. And so I was like, I have to think a little longer about this before I, make any commitment of sorts. And then there was a point in time where I realized Whitewater is like that good of a choice that it doesn't necessarily like matter. Like Sean being there or not wasn't going to make or break my decision, because I knew even if bowling for the team wasn't even the greatest, I knew I was going to a good school, a nice campus, great business program. Bowling alley on campus is really nice for me. And a school that, for a great price too, that I can pay for with all of my smart money and not worry about it.
Yeah. No, he talked about that too. He said before, Sean, that is, he said before announcing it, his decision, even to the team, he said he reached out to you and a couple of other recruits to let you know personally. He said that he felt he owed it to you, since he had recruited you so hard, to hear it from him and, not read about it on social media or get a text from someone in the program. He said, obviously, it wasn't the news that you were wanting to hear as you were close to making your decision. He said you talked for a few days, and later, he told you that you had to do what was best for you. So you make that announcement. He said a couple weeks after that, you let him know you had made your decision, and it was still to come to Whitewater. You made that announcement at Silver Lake. You mentioned Kale Rush before. He did a live stream on it. You were really emotional when you got in front of the microphone to talk to him about that. What was that all about? I mean, what was going through your mind as you kind of made that, put your stamp on it and said that that's where you were going to go?
I don't really know how to describe where the emotion came from, and it was a while ago too now.
Yeah.
Time goes fast, but I think what really got me going was just like we're talking about Sean a lot right now, and that was kind of what got me like emotional, I guess, because Sean was just like, through the recruiting process, he was like very like kind to me, and he still is to like this day. And that just everything he's always like said, or like the support he's given me, is like really like made me feel like great. So I don't know, it was just like emotional, like thinking about that or trying to reflect on that and talk about that in front of the camera at the time.
Sure. So you head down to Whitewater, and all of a sudden you are defending a national championship, something that no other Whitewater team had done, before that team that took it all. What was that like to get down there to kind of find your bearings, but also to know that the expectations were going to be pretty high?
Just from winning nationals the year before, I guess I wouldn't say it really like put more pressure on myself or the team, or that wasn't something that I thought a lot about. But just like some of the stuff that Sean had said to me, like hyping me up or telling me like how much he believed in me or what I could do, a lot of that like I thought about, I guess. And so, but I felt like I was pretty like composed, and I bowled really well during like for the first like half of the season. Like the first 3 events at least, I was leading the team like tournament after tournament, and we were bowling well too at the time. And so it was just like all going well. And then second half of the season, I bowled like pretty horrible, I guess. But just speaking on like defending the championship, it like none of the bad bowling of the second half of the season or like the first half necessarily of like the good bowling there really like mattered, because once we got to nationals, I did like my best bowling of the season that tournament. And so that just like felt really good, and we excelled. We led qualifying for the first time in program history, and we broke the scoring record. Then we won our first 2 matches. And so Whitewater's not going to win the championship every single year. And so for like my first year and coming off of winning, I thought that wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I'll say. Braden says that Vater sweeper wins are greater than high school state wins. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things are greater than high school state wins, but can't go wrong with winning Vader sweeper.
Yeah, I'll say. All right, so you're coming off of years and years of junior bowling, and that first year you had success. Were there differences for you between what you knew before coming to Whitewater and then joining that team and kind of figuring out your way as you got started in college bowling?
Yeah, it was definitely different, and just at Whitewater, and I'm sure like plenty of other places, we like pride ourselves on chemistry and being one team. And so like during high school, my team wasn't very like competitive, and so I was just bowling for myself. Like my senior year, it didn't matter. Like I struck 76% of the time, and we didn't even make it to state. I was purely bowling the season so I could make it to state and try to win the tournament again. And now coming to Whitewater, I'm bowling for the team, and so that's like the difference for me. And so I think another way Sean has put it in the past was I used to be a big fish in a little pond, and then now I'm a relatively small fish again in a much bigger pond. And so just talking to Sean and a lot of people, like when I won my first WYBT, I bowled against Mason Peterson, who was a Warhawk at the time. He said some like really nice, like kind words to me. And it was just like through all those talks, it helped me go from being an individual bowler who also had like an ego to being a team bowler. And I think I do a pretty good job at that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What's the difference in your mind? I mean, when you talk about an individual competition, which you do plenty of now, versus how you have to be with the team, is it more about communication? Is it more about playing the lanes a certain way, or are there other things that we just don't see when we're watching you bowl those events?
It's a lot of those two things that you mentioned. During individual competition, I'm not really communicating a lot with other bowlers. Like maybe I'll be bowling on the same pair as Braden, and there will be like a mutual level of like respect and like help there where, we'll talk to each other about what's going on, and it'll help both of us, and we'll even like learn stuff and make us better bowlers going forward. But as a team, it's very crucial that, we know what's going on with like every shot and what's going to happen in the next shot, and just talking about some of that stuff.
Yeah. Sean also said that while you haven't reached a goal of yours yet to make an all-tournament team, he says he knows that you have the opportunity to go down as one of the best in the history of the Warhawks program. He says as long as your focus and energy is centered in continually improving and not on what he says are the politics of the team or the drama of the program. Not saying that you're involved in any of that, but he says it's easy to get wrapped up in that. He says that you'll continue to write the history of your time in the Warhawks program. Those are, that's big stuff, right? Whitewater's got a lot of history. They've had a lot of great players come through. What does that make you feel like to hear him talk about you in the sense of rewriting history and becoming one of the best to ever come through there?
Yeah, it's pretty cool to think about, I guess. But this is something I've talked to Sean a lot about, I guess. We've talked about, stuff that's going on in my head, or when I'm, not bowling well, and he'll, for better or for worse, he'll tell me stuff like this, like just from the beginning. Years ago, there was Nick Crummell. He was fantastic bowler at Whitewater, was an All-American all 4 years. And so Sean's been telling me all about how I could be better than Crummel, or I could do, whatever. At this point, it's fair to say that that's not going to happen, but that's not in the front of my mind, or that's not the goal. That's not what I'm bowling for. I'm bowling for like a lot of different things, more important things, I guess. But I don't know. I have a lot of goals, I guess, and so even when I don't make an all tournament team or whatever, there's always like the next tournament and the next thing to work on. And just like, I don't know if we would at any other point we'd cover this, but at one point I thought about not bowling this year just for a lot of different reasons. But bowling nationals in April, that made me realize I couldn't leave, because there's nothing I want to do like more than win nationals with the team. And so I don't know if that necessarily answers your question. I was just rambling, but
No, I thought that was good. Along with, the college success, you've also had a lot of success in WYBTs. The picture that that you had on the graphic shows that you're the player of the year. You've won 7 times, and it's a pretty young tour, and nobody else has done that. No other boys have done that. So I reached out to Zach and said, why does he win so much? And he told me that you have a drive to win that is rare even among the talent he has at WYBT. Where does that come from? I've heard a lot of guys saying that, you've got to get out there with a killer instinct, and it's got to be win or bust, or you have to be more afraid to lose than you are, aiming for winning. What is it for you? And again, where does that come from?
I don't necessarily know where it came from, but just like growing up playing games with my brothers and stuff, I was always known as the most competitive one. And sometimes people wouldn't want to play with me because nobody wanted to take it as seriously as me. But there's just something in me that I just want to do the best that I can. And so every time I show up to a WYBT, the goal is to win. And I guess there isn't really much else to that. I just love to win, and that's why I work so hard.
Yeah. I also asked Trey about that because he's got a few wins himself. He told me that you win so many because, 1, you show up to most of them, and 2, because you can grind out 200 when they're hard. And that's not something that, a lot of people can do. Do you, do you look for a kind of a grind situation where it's going to be a tougher shot that you're going to need to, make great shots and make spares on? Is that kind of your optimal situation?
For years, I've loved the grind. I've loved the hardest patterns because I always felt the best bowlers succeeded. And so I just think of it as the fairest way to run a bowling tournament. You want the best bowlers to succeed. Why wouldn't you put out a hard, challenging pattern that's going to, make that happen? And I guess me winning all of these WYBTs proves that the best bowler does win a lot of the time, like more often when there are hard patterns. And so I can bowl fine on easier patterns, but I mean, I really do excel when it comes down to, throwing good shots, making your spares, and ball motion is always a huge key, which over the years, especially bowling WYBTs, I've gotten a lot better at, just like seeing the lane and such. And so I love stats, and I spend a ton of time on my spreadsheets, and I have miscellaneous stats for everything. And so WYBT is known for having really hard patterns. And so the cut is usually minus after 6 games. And so the last time I missed a WYBT cut that was minus was number 16, which was the 2nd season of WYBT, and we're in our 4th season now.
Oh,
And
wow.
we're about to bowl number 42 in a few days. So that's one of my favorite stats when we like talk about, bowling on hard patterns, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, coming from a couple junior tournament tours myself, it's hard to make cuts. So, yeah, to have a streak that long is very impressive. And, props to you for doing that. Um, Derek wants to know who among professional bowlers did you look up to? Now, you talked about Belmo in the Dude Perfect video. Is he the only one, or are there more?
I've always enjoyed watching or, admired the skills of other like two-handed bowlers, but it was really like Belmo who got me going, who I, wanted to throw the ball like. I wanted to watch all of his videos, learn everything I could. So Jason Belmonte is the main one.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten to meet him?
Yeah, at Junior Gold in 2018, I visited his booth.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how'd that go?
I don't know. It was just like casual conversation. I was in 8th grade. I was nervous, and he definitely doesn't remember me. So there's not much to it. So
Yeah. Nice guy, though. I've had the opportunity to interview him a couple times. Good guy. Out of the cut, Braden says, make 200 a good game again.
that's a hashtag that I think Zach Singer might have posted one time, or maybe somebody posted it, or I don't know why Zach comes to mind, just because we've said that a lot. And he runs WYBTs. So
Yeah.
I love 200 a good game.
Yeah. Yeah. That tells you that the pattern is challenging, and it takes a lot of good shot making to win. Speaking of the tougher patterns, another thing that Trey was talking about when I reached out was that you're a great competitor and always in contention for a win. He says you're a great ambassador for youth bowling outside of being a good bowler. And he mentioned that you create opportunities for youth to experience sport conditions. Let's talk about that a little bit, because, I know on the adult side in northwestern rural Wisconsin, it can be a challenge to find, sport conditions, sport leagues. Why is that important to you, not only to bowl on those tougher patterns, but to kind of spread the good word among the juniors near you?
It's just about growth and learning, as the title for Zach's video was. I love being able to, share the hard patterns with people through like my sweepers or my team tournament, because I just know it makes myself better and everybody else bowling them better. And so I know like my brother Henry, when I started running my sweepers a couple of years ago, he was averaging 115 at them. And now, they accidentally put out a house shot in one of my sweepers recently, which was pretty disappointing. But Henry averaged like 220. And so just to see the growth from Henry and myself and Braden, who bowls a lot of them, it's really special. There's a lot of other kids that I haven't named who, bowl WIBTs and other stuff that have enjoyed bowling my sweepers, and I think would like vouch for my sweepers, saying, they've helped them in one way or another.
Yeah. And Braden even just said, I can't wait to bowl Vader's sweepers this week.
Yep. On Thursday and Friday, I'm running 2 sweepers before the WIBT and before team trials.
Okay.
Just to get some competition going, I guess.
Yeah. Out by you or somewhere else?
Yep. In Scandinavia, right near me.
Cool. All right. Another event that you have coming up that you're running is the 2024 Weston Winter Classic, which is in the Wausau area on January 21st, Dale's Weston Lanes. For people who aren't familiar with that, what's that all about?
A couple years ago, so this is my 3rd year running this, I started, this team tournament where my vision was basically to create a tournament outside of high school state, because there's a couple tournaments that go on during like December, Milwaukee, they like filled other side of state. I wanted to give it the feel of like a college tournament. So that's how I decided my format. We bowl a few individual games, just as we would like on a Saturday during college bowling. And that's like the qualifying portion. And then last year we did an 8-team double elimination bracket. And so each match was 3 games of Baker bowling, total pins. And then I've been using college oil patterns in the past, and I'm going to use another one this year. They are on like the easier side of college bowling. I don't want everybody to shoot 150 every game, but I don't want them to shoot 220 every game. I think it's pretty fun. The teams that seem to come back every year, so they think it's fun and worth their time. We had 16 teams in 2022 and 17 last year.
Okay. If there are high school bowlers out there who still want to get in, is it too late to register?
Absolutely not. I have a Facebook event out there, and then I've emailed plenty of coaches and district coordinators around the state. But if anybody wants to contact me, they could email me at rcvater@gmail.com.
Cool. All right. Again, January 21st, Dale's Weston Lanes in Weston, Wisconsin. Fantastic facility if you haven't been there. Very big and very nice. They've always been that way. Derek says, why the hell are we going into 2024? It just does not seem real. Well, got to get there sooner or later, right? So I also reached out to Brandon Mooney, who was the coach that succeeded Sean. So big shoes to fill, but he's quite a guy too. I had an opportunity to talk with him in Rochester. I'd never met him face to face. I asked him about you. He said that you have transitioned into one of the top players and leaders in that program. He said that your work ethic is what he enjoys most about you. He says that you're committed to your craft and definitely puts the work into your game. So what does that mean? What does that look like for you? How often are you out on the lanes practicing and putting in that work that's obviously made him take notice?
Yeah, I guess you hear it a lot from people when they like talk about me or whatever. They say I like work hard, but there's very few people that like understand what that really means, because they, like some of my friends at Whitewater, my teammates, they like see like firsthand for the most part what I do, but they don't see everything that I do. And so just on the lanes, like when I'm at school, this last semester I'd finish class at noon or 12:15. And so I'd go practice for an hour and a half. And then at 2:00, there was either women's practice or I had a class at 2. And then I would come back in the evening on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We'd have team practice for a couple hours, so I'd practice then. And then so like Mondays and Fridays when we didn't have team practice or we weren't traveling, I would come back on my own and have a second session by myself. And so just a lot of team practices. They're good for me, but I always enjoyed individual practice. There's a lot more time to like focus on myself or what's going on. And so like for my birthday this year, I got a tripod. And so recently I've been doing I just record every shot, and then I'm rewatching almost every shot after it happens, and seeing if what I'm seeing on the video is matching up to like what I'm feeling and what I need to do on the next shot, because I'm constantly working on multiple things in my game, whether that's like my footwork or where my arms are in my approach, my head, and there's so many little things. And so I spend a lot of time practicing, and if in the rare case that we don't bowl on the weekends, like a tournament. I'm there practicing, and then I talked to Brandon a while ago. We were in the car, and I used to like practice a bunch, even like when I come home from a WYBT, whether I won it or I lost it. If I felt I needed a little more work, I would go and practice. And so Brandon was like, maybe you should like not do that. And so I guess I've sort of decided maybe it's okay if I give myself, a few more hours to just like let my body decompress and rest more. But that's the bowling aspect of it. And then this semester, I really took on like a lot more things. Like I really like got deeper into it. And so at night I would go out for a run, run 5, 6, 8 miles. Just, it doesn't necessarily make me a better bowler, but like stuff like that, or going to the gym with my teammate Tanner every night, or doing abs before I take a shower at night and before I take a shower in the morning. Just stuff like that it just like makes myself, like, my body feel good, me feel good about my body. And when I spend so much time practicing, it's good to keep my body in shape, like working on my abs and my core and like my back strength and such. That way, I don't get injured, or I have more endurance. So I'm, practicing feeling good rather than fatigued.
Yeah. Yeah, college tournaments can be long days for sure. We've heard several coaches talk about that. So to have that endurance and physical strength to keep it going at the highest level is big. Kristen Anderson says, hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. And Michael Evanson wants to know if Minnesota high school bowlers can bowl in your tournaments.
Yes.
Okay.
And I stated my email earlier. You can, find me on Facebook and such. There's a lot of ways to get a hold of me, but there's no rule saying a high school team can't, send some bowlers over to bowl the Winter Classic in January. That would be awesome.
Cool.
If they.
Yeah. Oh, and Kristen says she had a Merry Christmas. Wants to know what your bowling goals are for 2024.
Ooh. Last year I like posted a Facebook post with a list of some goals, I guess. And I was thinking about earlier this week how I should, go back and look back at that and reflect on that, and think about more that I have for next year. So I haven't put a lot of thought into it, but some of the stuff that like comes to mind is making Junior Team USA, which is, only a week away from, working towards making that reality, I guess. And Sean mentioned my not having an all tournament team, which I think is funny at this point. But I could see myself, making 3, 4, 5, 6 of those next year. I'm going to keep bowling WYBTs. I've won 3 so far this season.
Wow.
Might make it 4 on Saturday. And so I'd love to win, maybe, I don't know, a ton of them or something. And I think the big one would be winning nationals with Whitewater. But
yeah,
I could go on, but I guess that kind of like brushes the surface, or that's good enough.
Sure. Yeah, another thing that Brandon had told me is, he mentioned that conversation that you had. He said it was on the way back from Brunswick headquarters in Michigan. And he said that, it was a great conversation as far as what your goals are for yourself and both the team. And he said to summarize it the best way he can, he says that you want to win. He said that you have the goals to be the best at what you do, and that you want to make sure that you put up your end of the work to help the team succeed. Um, and of course, he mentioned the work ethic that we had talked about at length. Um, what could hold you back? What are the challenges out there that that stand in your way from being the best you can be?
There's a few things that like could come to mind, but like at the end of the day, it all falls on like choices that I make and the work that I put in. There's always going to be pins that, don't fall when they should, or people who bowl good when they shouldn't be bowling good just because they're having their lucky day. And or there's stuff like recently I spent some time talking and like thinking about just like my emotional well-being, because I was noticing like I would go in practice and I would feel horrible, and there's no explanation for it. It's like, why? I've been working on the same thing for months and I just come in and I feel horrible. And then I'll go and, bowl a tournament, and it's like, why did I throw the ball physically bad? Like I shouldn't be doing that. But I've realized a lot of it like falls upon like what's going on in my brain, not just like I like to believe that I have a good mental game and I can focus and such, but it's some of the like underlying things or the subconscious like thoughts about like what's going on outside of the bowling alley. And so when stuff like that, when there's stuff like bothering me, like that's, things that could in theory like hold me back. That's just a thing that, I need to control. So I need to, block people out of my life that, are making me, have issues with that, or whatever it is, like I said, it's a lot of decisions that just I need to make for myself.
Yeah. You've done so much in this sport in a relatively short period of time. I mean, a lot of people that I talk to on this show, have bowled since they could walk, or they've bowled since they were 6, 7 years old. You've been relatively a late bloomer, but an incredibly full bloomer. So tell me about the future. What do you hope that this leads to? Is there an end game? Do you want to be a touring pro, someone who works in the industry, a coach like we were talking about before? Or is this just something that you like to do, that you'll always have, but you'll move on to something else professionally?
I've like thought about things like this a lot before, and I haven't really come to a specific conclusion. Where it's like I love to win, so I'm just like doing what's in front of me. And so that's like, stuff like bowling well at WYBTs, bowling well in college, being an All-American, or, and so it's like a lot of stepping stones where in the past I've had like a lot of issues with believing in myself. So it's like stuff like dropping out of team trials a couple of years ago, or really just like crossing Wichita off my list because part of me told me that I wasn't good enough to bowl at Wichita. So I've always like, I don't know what to think about pro bowling. Like I'd love to do it, and I put so much time and effort into becoming a better bowler. So it's like, why wouldn't I try to do that? If I'm working so hard, it would be silly for me to, not consider going down that road, or, making an effort. But I know for sure I want to be in the bowling industry. I spent my entire day thinking about bowling, so I whether it's bowling on the tour, coaching, just simply like being on the tour. When the World Series came to Wauwatosa the last couple of years, that opened my eyes to like how many jobs there really are out there. So I think even if I'm not throwing the ball on the tour, there was always like a place for me where I would be able to, take in what's going on and enjoy that in a sense by being, a tour rep or recording videos or so many different things.
Yeah. Yeah, there's certainly a ton of possibilities. I had that same feeling when I was down there, just shooting video for the channel. Yeah, there are a ton of different avenues, and it's great that you kind of have that broad view of it because, yeah, there are some interesting possibilities for sure. Michael wants to know, what are your socials to find out about the tournaments that you're running?
See, on Facebook, I don't know if there isn't like an at. Is there like, like I can't say like at
Yeah,
RW or whatever.
I think you just look you up by name, Robert Vater.
Yeah. So on Facebook, you can just look up Robert Vater, and I would have to assume that I'm like the top result. But like I said before, you can email me at rcvater@gmail.com.
There you go. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Michael was one of them that bowled in the the youth holiday match games in Rochester. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they have a team with some Minnesota roots in that Weston Winter Classic. Robert, you've seen the show before. We go off the sheet at the end, and that means I ask you if you would challenge somebody to come on a future episode. Doesn't have to be Jason Belmonte, but of course it could. We look for people who are passionate about the sport and have a unique story to tell. So, Robert Vater, who would you like to challenge to be on a future episode of Bowling with the Fef?
Just a couple minutes ago, you talked about having like a later start to bowling, but like really like blossoming. And so I would have to say like Braden Malish is the clear answer to me, because Braden has been bowling for even less time than me, but yet he's still accomplished like so much in such a little time. And I think there's a long story, or there's a lot of details that could really interest a lot of people. Like it's a good story what like Braden's done and how he's gotten where he has. And just like my Instagram, he does a fantastic job on YouTube. As everybody saw him commenting out of the cut bowling, he makes some great videos. So I think that would be a great episode if you had Braden on the show.
Yeah, out of the cut bowling, certainly some fantastic content. And like I said, having the opportunity to cross with Braden, it's easy to see why he's in Wichita now and bowling great. So Braden, if you're watching this either live or on replay and you want to get a hold of me, you can search me by name on Facebook. My name is Andrew Pfeffer, or you can email me bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com. And if you're up for it, we will certainly make it happen. Robert, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story, and best of luck at team trials and for the rest of this season for that tremendous Whitewater program.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. It's been a good time.
Good to hear. And thanks to all of you who took the time to tune in. Always appreciate that. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, be just and fear not. We will see you again next time.